Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Charlene and today I'm going to be sharing a bit of a fun announcement with you. Before I get into that, you probably noticed we're in a slightly different location, but I didn't have a chance to film over the weekend and this was the only place in the house I could find that I could film without the kids interrupting. So hopefully this ends up working, but if you do hear them in the background, I apologize. I tried to keep them occupied with something that would keep them quiet, but I don't know how well it's going to work. So I feel like pretty much all of us here on BookTube are very excited for the fall season to get here. In a way, I feel weird looking forward to fall because honestly, this has been a pretty mild summer for us. I don't know about you guys in the rest of the country, but here in the Midwest, at least the northern Midwest, we were pretty much in the 70s, maybe low 80s until about early mid-July. And we still get a few days where we're in the 90s and then we go back to the 70s and then we go to the 90s and back to the 70s. So it doesn't even really feel like it's been summer. And my tomato plants can attest to that because they are not ripening as fast as they were last year. But I'm still looking forward to fall, and more than anything, I'm looking forward to cooler weather that drives the bugs away, because the bugs are driving me nuts this year. We had a very mild winter last year. It did not kill out very many of the bugs, and you can tell they are absolutely everywhere. But aside from that, let's get into this announcement because I'm hoping to have this up before it gets too late in the month of August. So if you guys want to download this and have fun with this over the fall, you have time to get that done and maybe plan some things out before September gets here. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I know here on BookTube, there's been a growing trend of bingo boards, whether it be monthly ones or seasonal ones or even ones for readathons, but they have been gaining in popularity. However, I don't mind doing the bingo boards. I enjoy them. However, when it comes to something that I wanted to create for you guys, something that I thought would be fun for you guys to do, what I am more drawn to are things like scavenger hunts. I don't know why, scavenger hunts have just always kind of been my thing. Scavenger hunts, treasure hunts, anything like that, where I have to go look for other things. Honestly, I probably prefer more of the treasure hunt, where you get clues that lead you from one thing to another, but that's a little harder to do. So I created a fall scavenger hunt for you guys, and I will put a picture of it up here on the screen, and I will have a link where you can download your own copy down in the description below. But this is different from the bingo board in that this is not one of those things that you can really plan out in advance, I feel like. It's possible that you might have an idea of this book will probably have this item in it, but the idea of this is you just go through and as you read your books this fall in the months of September, October, and November, you just look for these items in the books that you're reading and check them off as you come across them. And you can do this however you want. If you want to say, every time I come across one of these items, I'm checking it off, that's fine. If you want to say, once I find one item in a book, that book can't count for anything else, that's fine too. It is completely up to you. There's no challenge or competition with this. There's no giveaway with this. I literally made these, so if you guys want to look for some fall things in the books that you're reading this month, this is a fun way to do it, I hope. And I don't know where all of my viewers are from, so if you are living in the southern hemisphere and thinking, great, but it's going to be spring here, not fall, don't worry, I made a spring one too. So whichever season you're going into, whether it's fall or spring, I have links for both of the sheets down in the description below. You can download whichever one fits the season you're going into. So I'm going to go over the fall sheet first and just kind of go over the things on there. Also, I forgot to mention on each sheet, there's also a list of 5 fall/spring activities that you can do if you want to. They're just ideas for things to do that would fit with the season, but they are not necessarily things that you have to do. And sorry if you can hear the truck outside. All right, so let's go over the fall sheet first. So in the first section, it says a book that mentions. So this is where you're going to go through your books as you read them and see if you find any of the items on the list. So the things you're looking for in your books are a warm or hot beverage. So this could be hot chocolate, hot apple cider, hot coffee, hot tea, anything that when the character drinks it, it's warm or hot. And I said warm because there might be some mentions where a character waits until the drink cools down until it's warm. So it's more of a drinkable temperature, or it might specify hot, but I feel like warm or hot drinks, either one works well for fall. Next one is a cozy piece of fall clothing. So this could be something like a sweater, a scarf, a flannel shirt, anything along that line. Or anything that you think of that you would particularly find to be a cozy clothing item. Next one is all of the primary fall colors, which to me are red, orange, yellow, and brown. Or you could also replace yellow with gold. So if you find a book that mentions all four of those colors somewhere throughout the book, then you can check this one off. Next is a small woodland animal. So this could be a squirrel, a chipmunk, a gopher. I don't know if gophers are really considered woodland, but could be a small bird. I would even be okay if you wanted to count something like a deer or a fox. And I realize deer are not small, but maybe I should have put a cute woodland animal instead of small. I might fix that in here. Next is a classic or a short story. I know for a lot of people it seems like mysteries and thrillers are what people lean towards in the fall, but I think classics, and there are a lot of books that will mention characters reading a classic novel. So if somewhere in there it mentions a classic novel or it mentions a short story, either one of those would count. All right, and then in the second column we have all the short ones. So you have a fall month, which would be September, October, or November if you're in the northern hemisphere. If your book takes place in the southern hemisphere and it mentions March, April, or May, that would count also. But unless it takes place in the southern hemisphere, I wouldn't count those 3 months. Next one is a fall activity. So there are plenty of things to choose from this. You have corn mazes, bobbing for apples, going to a pumpkin patch, going on a hayride, going to haunted houses. There's a plethora of things to choose from that we tend to do in the fall. Bonfires, all sorts of stuff. Next is a baked good. So anything baked. Doesn't have to be homemade. They could go to a bakery and get it. But anything like muffins, bread, donuts, cakes, pies, anything like that. Next is a fall holiday, and part of this is going to depend on where you live or where the books you're reading take place. So this could be Labor Day, this could be Halloween, it could be Thanksgiving, either Canadian or American Thanksgiving. It could be, here in the US, it could be Veterans Day or Election Day, because that's coming up this year. If you know of other fall holidays and they get mentioned in the book, you can use those as well. Those are the main ones that come to mind for me, but I don't know what holidays a lot of other religions celebrate in the fall or what other countries celebrate in the fall. So just go off of the holidays that you know about, and if they're mentioned in one of your books, then you can count it. And the last one is a school item, because fall in the northern hemisphere is when we all go back to school. Typically. Some go back to school in August, a lot go back to school in September. So honestly, a school item could be anything from a pencil or a notebook to a backpack or a lunchbox. If you see an item in a book and it's something that you would have had when you were in school, you can count it. Or somebody you know would have had it when they were in school, you can count it. All right, and then at the bottom, we have the 5 activities. And again, these are just for fun, just to give you an idea of some things maybe you want to try to do this fall. The first one is to read a historical fiction or a mystery. This is part of the reason I think of classics in the fall, because I also lean very heavily on historical fiction in the fall. But I know a lot of people, like I said, like mysteries and thrillers. So if you read a historical fiction or a mystery, either one would count. Next is to try a new warm or hot drink. So a drink that's new to you. And honestly, you can count this however you want. If you just say, I fixed coffee, but I used a new creamer, go ahead and count it if you want. Or if you made your coffee in a new way, like maybe you made a latte instead of just drip coffee, or maybe you tried a new flavor at a coffee shop, any of those would count. Next is play a new to you board game. Board games are very, very popular in our house. We own a lot of games and we play a lot of games. So this is just a fun activity in general. And fall is the time when it feels the most cozy during the year. And I feel like board games can be a very cozy family thing. So play a new board game. Next is to buy or make a fall-themed bookmark. I was going to say make a fall-themed bookmark, but I realized not all of us are necessarily the most crafty people. I try to be, but I'm really not the best at it. So if you just go to a store and find a bookmark that has a fall theme to it and you buy it, that totally counts. And last one is to make some kind of baked good from scratch. The ones I listed are pie, cake, cookies, or bread. And I feel like fall very much feels like baking season, probably because it's also harvest season. So fix one of these baked goods from scratch. Right, and now I will go through the spring scavenger hunt. So for this one, a lot of these kind of feel similar to the fall, but I was kind of on a time crunch trying to finalize this and so I could film and get this video up to you guys in time. So sorry if they're a little too similar, but I was trying my best. So when it comes to spring, I tend to think of rain, birds, flowers, and gardening. Those are the main things that come to mind for me when it comes to spring. So you'll kind of notice that as we go through the list. But the first item is a cool or cold beverage. If fall screams warm beverages, spring tends to scream cold beverages. Because we're coming out of winter, it's starting to warm up. Now the cooler drinks start to sound better. So this could be just an iced drink in general. It could be lemonade. It could be a smoothie. Anything like that. If it is a cool or cold drink, it counts. And again, sorry, I didn't specify. These are the things that you're looking for in the books that you're reading this spring if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Next one is a specific type of bird. So not just that a book says a bird flew by, but says maybe a robin or a cardinal or an eagle or a hawk or anything like that. Any specific name of a bird, or like if someone goes to a zoo and they see flamingos, anything like that would count. Right, next are all of the primary spring colors. And the colors that I think of for spring that I had in mind when I made this list are green, blue, pink, and purple. So if you find those 4 colors in a book that you're reading, it counts. And I probably should have specified even back in the fall one. If you find mentions of those colors, but not in that exact wording, it still counts. So if you see lavender rather than purple, if you see cerulean instead of blue, if you see scarlet instead of red, those still count because they are shades of those colors. Next is a specific type of flower. So this could be a daisy, a sunflower, a rose, anything along that line. Next is a classic author or poet. I didn't want this one to be exactly the same as the fall one, but I was struggling to come up with something different. So instead of a classic novel, you're going to look for a classic author, which could be F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, Charles Dickens, Rudyard Kipling, Dostoevsky, take your pick. Or a poet, so Robert Frost, Emily Dickinson, anything like that. If any of those are mentioned in the book that you're reading, they count. Next is a spring month, which for you guys in the Southern Hemisphere would be September, October, and November. But as I said in the fall section, if you're reading a book that takes place in the Southern Hemisphere and it mentions March, April, or May, that will also count, but only if it takes place in the Northern Hemisphere. Next is a spring activity. So this could be gardening, this could be spring cleaning, it could be picking flowers, anything that you would think of as an activity that you would do in the spring and not so much in the other seasons. Next one is rain or a storm. And I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. If a book mentions that it's raining or storming, it counts. Next one is a spring holiday. So any holidays that occur in the months of September, October, and November. And if you're reading a book in the Northern Hemisphere and it mentions Halloween or Thanksgiving, you could count those. Or if it's a holiday in the Southern Hemisphere for spring, that's fine too. And the last one is a gardening tool. So a trowel, a rake, a shovel, anything that you would use for gardening. Gloves, watering can, anything like that. And then at the bottom we have 5 activities that you can choose to do if you want to. The first one is to read a contemporary or a classic. To me, spring and fall both kind of scream classics, so I put a classic on here as well. But then that also feels like the time of year when I'm more inclined to to read contemporary novels as well. So you can read one of those two genres. Next is to try a new cold or chilled drink. So you could try a new smoothie, a new ice drink, anything like that, as long as it's a new drink to you. Next one is to put together a new to you puzzle. I tend to like doing puzzles in the winter, but as winter is shifting into spring, there's still plenty of puzzles out there that are really nice, especially with a lot of spring colors and flowers and all of that kind of stuff. So put together a new to you puzzle. Next one is to buy or make a spring themed bookmark. And yes, this is basically the same as the fall one. I couldn't really come up with anything else. So yeah, you can buy or make a bookmark that has spring colors, has flowers or birds or things that remind you of spring on it. And last but not least is to make a soup or salad from scratch. And I was kind of struggling to figure out what to do with this one because the fall was to make a baked good from scratch. And I thought, what do we really eat in the spring that you can make from scratch? And a lot of greens are starting to come in the spring, especially in the late spring. So it's a good time to make a fresh salad. Also because especially the earlier months can still be kind of cool, making a homemade soup can also be a really nice thing to have. So make a soup or salad from scratch. All right, so that's all I have for you guys for today. Again, I made these just if you guys want something a little different to use with your reading or some ideas for fall or spring activities, depending on which hemisphere you're in. This is something you could potentially use. So again, if you want to do this, you can go down to the description below and there are links to both of these sheets down there and you can do whichever one fits the season you are going into. And if you do this, I hope you enjoy it. And other than that, as always, I hope you're having a wonderful day and I'll see you later.